Alright, so Clash of Clans just released this new Clash of Dragons scenery, and as much as I admire the time that went into it, from the animations to the music to the art and how large it truly is, I really do not think charging people upwards of $40 is the way for Clash of Clans to go forward. I know that it's a legendary scenery and it's designed to be this price for a reason, but I honestly don't see their justification for charging that much beyond the legendary price tag. For some perspective, for $40 you can straight up buy a multitude of indie games, usually those that are on sale, for that amount of money. They've had hundreds of thousands of hours poured into them, some of those indie games are even free, and most of them are made by a small game studio that quite honestly could use the money but don't feel like ripping off their players. Take Stardew Valley for an example. It's an absolutely beautiful game, developed by one person, and I believe it's still solely managed, and that game only costs £11 in my country, which is about $13 when converted into freedom currency. In the UK they're charging me £33 for the scenery, or $43. I can buy Stardew Valley 3 times over and will finally reach the same amount of money required for this scenery. This scenery straight up feels like a rip-off of the highest order, and that's not mentioning the fact that Clash of Clans attempted to replace the hero skin that they usually throw into their gold passes with an animated dice, which I honestly think was an egregious decision that shouldn't have made it past internal feedback. Thankfully they did end up correcting this, and I do hope that they're willing to lower the price of the scenery too, not only because it makes it much more accessible, but also because it's just not worth that much. I can see that Clash of Clans wishes to compensate the developers that made this admittedly beautiful scenery, but boasting about it being 6 times the size whilst also making it 5 times the price of a usual scenery doesn't exactly bring much to the table when it comes to convincing myself or most players to invest that amount of money into the game, especially when a lot more level-headed options exist out there on the market. Clash of Clans is already making so much money, and trying to justify the price of a scenery that's this expensive is honestly outrageous. I get how they're trying to be more free-to-play friendly and trying to diversify their monetization streams, but the game more generally feels like a slow grind for anyone who is a free-to-play player, especially once you get to the later town halls. Now, I'm aware that Clash of Clans is currently hosting the treasure hunt event, which will benefit people massively, and especially those free-to-play players. Yet I fear this is going to be greatly overshadowed by a scenery that is blatantly designed to bait a lot of financially gifted players into buying it, thanks to that whole illusion of exclusivity. Thankfully this isn't something that's going to change the game in a vastly impactful way, as it's just a scenery. Yeah, this worries me about how Clash of Clans is going to handle its methods of monetizing its game moving forward. They made it clear in the update post regarding this change that this is something they're going to commit to moving forward, and although I appreciate that fact and they're going to try and keep away from interfering with upgrade times and such, I still fear for the wallets of a good majority of people who enjoy Clash of Clans and honestly think these sceneries are a good deal, because it's honestly not. The maximum amount I would have been willing to pay for this scenery is $25, or roughly £20 for the scenery, not a cent or pence more. I love supporting Clash of Clans and I love playing the game like a lot of you in the audience, but this is just getting ridiculous at this point. I could have forgiven them for correcting their mistake when it came to the season's gold pass by including a skin as well as a decision dice, but they've turned around a week later, delivered this update, and as good as it is, they've also slapped us with a massive price tag for the scenery. The thing is, I'm mad about that price simply because it's a really good scenery. I want to support the game and I want to buy this, but man, I really can't justify investing that much money into the game as a casual player. Usually I end up buying stuff from the Supercell store, as they've always got some really good stuff on there, and yes, I do spend money on the game. Yeah, this scenery just scratches my head when it comes to the decisions they made leading up to this. I was convinced that they had learned from their mistakes, but clearly this hasn't been the case. Although it doesn't do as much harm as a gold pass missing the hero skin or them destroying the game even further with pay to win aspects, I still think it's outrageous how they're most likely going to end up getting away with this. There exists a huge lake of whales for Clash of Clans to pull revenue from, and this honestly feels like another convenient way for them to gouge a lot of money from their wallets simply for bragging rights. Exclusivity is one thing, but this honestly does remind me of how Clash of Royale handled the implementation of level 15. Thankfully it's not nearly as bad, but I can see similar posturing with them wanting to use this massive price tag to create an elite club of individuals who are purely committed to spending money on the game. And thanks to the fact that this won't be the first legendary scenery implemented in the game, who knows how much money Clash of Clans plans to line their pockets with via use of these legendary sceneries. Furthermore, I'd like to add that I see this as an extremely insulting thing for Clash of Clans as a game to do for its players when there's already a lot of exclusive content that exists out there within the game itself. I know they've got to make their money somehow, and the gold pass alongside their event passes is a ludicrous way for them to do so without much in the way of consequences, but there are a lot of people people who are already missing out on a lot of the sceneries or skins in the game. It already costs quite a bit of money to get matching sets of skins for your heroes if you ever wish to invest your money into the game, and being greeted by a scenery that costs almost 5 times as much as your average scenery is extremely discouraging. As for my recommendation following this video, if you're considering buying this for the amount of money it costs, just don't bother. It's not worth being robbed when it comes to this scenery. Clash of Clans usually houses so many good offers on their Supercell store page, and if you've got the money to spend, it's probably better to spend your money on things that can advance the progress of your base instead of a scenery. You see, I wouldn't have been mad about the scenery and its price if it was bundled in with some magic items or even some chests for their treasure hunt event that's going on, but the fact that they're advertising the scenery for that price is honestly a huge disappointment. If they want to keep that price, that's fine, but they need to bundle in other things to make it worth that amount instead of saying it's a legendary scenery, they just cost that much now. Anyways, I know this video has been much shorter than usual, but I just need to talk about this. I know Clash of Clans is open to feedback and it's not nearly as bad as Clash Royale, but that price for a scenery just isn't worth it in the slightest. Most players would buy that scenery, stop zooming out of their base to admire it after a week, and then probably go back to a regular scenery once again, considering the most sane people playing Clash of Clans only really pay attention to the base itself other than everything surrounding it, besides collectible obstacles of course. It would benefit us all greatly if they could find a sweet spot between price as well as the prestige of owning such a scenery. As much as I love supporting one of my favourite game series and one of my favourite games more generally, I really do not think vanity is a good reward for the price that you're paying.